Hello, this is your brain on drugs, and this is a punk rock psychiatrist. So today I'm doing kind of a different episode. It's going to be a quick one, so it'll be easy listening for you. I thought that, as I kind of got new news that came out and I had time to analyze it, that I would do quick, quick information for you on it. And today I want to talk to you about Suzetrigine. All right, so this isn't exactly a psychiatric medication. It's a pain medication. And so, I mean, that has a lot to do with psychiatry. I know a handful of psychiatrists that do pain fellowships, addiction specialties. We deal with opioid addiction. And so, pain is definitely something that's in our wheelhouse, and it's something I'll get to at some point. But I just wanted to kind of release this now to talk about this one medication because it was approved this year in January of 2025. And, you know, I, I'm not one to watch TV ads or be advertised to by drug companies. So maybe I'm late to the game with this. Maybe you all already know about Suzetrigine. Um, I find my information through different ways. They kind of come across my table. I haven't heard any podcasts talk about this. It's pretty exciting. So let's do the rundown. So I'm kind of guessing at how to say it. So its generic name is Suzetrigine. That's Suzetrigine, and brand name is Journavx, Journavx. Love those crazy letters. Gotta throw V's, Q's, X's, Z's. Drug companies love that stuff. Um, as I said, it was FDA approved in January of 2025 this year. And the cool thing about it is it's a non opioid pain medication. Now, we've got a lot of non opioid pain medications: Tylenol, ibuprofen, naproxen. There's a ton out there, but this one's a little bit different. It's actually a first in class medication, which means its mechanism of action is the first medication to utilize that mechanism of action. It's kind of a because it's first in its class of this. It's something that you probably never heard of. So it's a selective inhibitor of a sodium, and I don't even know how to say this. I've heard it pronounced NaV 1.8. The way it's written is sodium with a little V subscript 1.8. The V, I think that stands for voltage gated, but it's a voltage gated sodium channel, and um, hopefully you guys have heard of sodium gated voltage or voltage gated sodium channels. Sorry, there's actually many different kinds. This is 1.8. There's 1.7. There's 1.9. I'm not sure how many there are. I don't know a whole lot about this, all these little subtypes of it. I mean, we have medications that interact with these voltage gated sodium channels, but to this specific degree of the 1.8 type, I'm not aware of that. So it's sodium 1.8 dependent pain signaling pathway. And this is the other cool part: it's only in the peripheral nervous system. So one way that the opioids get you is they get into your brain and they cause addiction and dopamine release and all this other stuff. This is this medication acts only in the periphery, so outside the brain. And what this specific sodium gate or voltage gated sodium channel, man, I keep saying that wrong. What this one specifically is responsible for, it's expressed on dorsal root ganglion, right? So that's coming off the spinal column, on sensory neurons, so the neurons where we feel things, for nociception, which is pain reception, right? So these are this receptor is specific to pain, the sensation of pain. So that's pretty cool. It's not a scheduled substance. It's not known to be and is unlikely to be addictive. When all the opioids came out, every time they came out with a new one, They were like, oh, this is, oxycodone. This is not like morphine. It's not going to be addictive. Oh, now, sorry, it was. Sorry, now we mixed it with Tylenol, and somehow magically that makes it not addictive. I don't like know how they convinced people that adding Tylenol to oxycodone all of a sudden made it not addictive. Um, but it's like they just keep coming out saying, "Oh, these aren't addictive. This aren't addictive." But this one really seems like it wouldn't be, right? I mean, these are not opioid receptors. These are a completely different type of receptor. We have other medications that interact with voltage gated sodium channels. They aren't known to be addictive. It's not getting into the brain. So I think that's something that we could certainly believe. Its adverse effects were itching, muscle spasms, increase in creatine kinase, and rash. And the incidence of all those were pretty low, between 1 and 3%. Um, they did two randomized double blind placebo controlled trials, and there were around 2,000 adults in the two studies combined. And these adults had moderate to severe pain. And what they did was they measured the pain 48 hours after um, starting the medication. And they had three groups. They had a placebo group, and for each trial, each of these two trials, they had a placebo group, they had a suzetrigine group, and they had a hydrocodone acetaminophen group. So hydrocodone acetaminophen, that's basically Vicodin, right? So that's an opioid. So they compared these three groups, and so in one group, the it was an abdominoplasty, which is a tummy tuck. So all these patients had had tummy tucks, and then they were given either a placebo, they were given hydrocodone acetaminophen, or they were given suzetrigine. And the interesting thing was there was a 31% drop in pain with placebo, a 43% drop with hydrocodone acetaminophen, and a 47% drop with suzetrigine. And then the other study was a bunionectomy. That would be the removal of a bunion, which is kind of protrusion of the bone on the foot. Um, Placebo, the same thing tested 48 hours later. Placebo had a 38% drop. A hydrocodone acetaminophen had a 53% drop in pain, and suzetrigine had a 51% drop. And so, in both of these studies, both hydrocodone acetaminophen, the opioid, which is this is a common opioid that we use, right? Um, and the suzetrigine both beat placebo, and they were virtually the same. So in one case, suzetrigine was a little bit better than the opioid, and in one case, the opioid was a little bit better than the suzetrigine, but very close. So according to these studies, it actually performed as well as the opioid. So this is sounding pretty freaking great. Okay, so let's learn more. Um, this is one of the downsides. All right, so it is metabolized by CYP3A4, so it's sensitive to inhibitors and inducers of 3A4, right? And so inhibitors are like grapefruit juice, ketoconazole. There's a handful of them. We know we have some, right? Like fluvoxamine, um, I think nifazodone, if I remember correctly. So it is affected by 3A4. If it's a strong 3A4, they recommend not mixing them. If it's moderate, they have a different dosing schedule where you kind of dose it half as often. Um, but in addition to being a metabolized by 3A4, oh, and the other thing is, you got to be careful with inducers. So an inducer would basically not make it work. So those are our anti-epileptic treatments. So like carbamazepine, phenytoin, stuff like that, phenobarbital. Those are 3A4 inducers. St. John's wort, we just talked about that one. So those would be contraindicated because they would basically make it ineffective. But here's the interesting thing: suzetrigine is also an inducer of 3A4. So kind of like carbamazepine, which we haven't talked about yet, which is a it is metabolized by 3A4, and it is an inducer of 3A4. So it induces its own metabolism. But they've figured out a dosing schedule for this that and a dose that I guess accounts for that. But you don't want to be mixing in any other inducers on top of the fact that it is an inducer. But what you have to be concerned about then is mixing this medication with other drugs that are metabolized by 3A4 because it will induce their metabolism, basically making those drugs ineffective. And one that we really worry about is birth control. Progestins are metabolized by 3A4. So the company that produces this, the warning is that it may make birth control less effective, except levonorgestrel and norethindrone. And I was kind of confused by this because those progestins are affected by 3A4. Um, and the best that I could kind of decipher from this was that they had actually tested the levels of those when mixed with a suzetrigine, and it didn't affect the levels. So it's not a strong inducer of 3A4. And so why say except levonorgestrel and norethindrone? Well, I don't know about norethindrone, but it said that levonorgestrel was the only one that they tested. And so it's like, okay, we only tested that one and we found out it was fine. So it may very well be fine with other progestins, but they haven't tested it with them, so they're kind of hedging their bets. I didn't see where they had tested it with norethindrone, but like if you read the package insert, it mentions levonorgestrel and norethindrone as exceptions like 11 times. So it's like if you're on something else, use a different birth control method or a birth control method that uses levonorgestrel and norethindrone. Okay, so that's according to the drug manufacturer that they cleared those two, despite the fact that it's an inducer of 3A4. Those are good to go, um, but it may affect other drugs that are metabolized by 3A4. So it also noted that it could make it more difficult to become pregnant, and I was like, well, that's weird. And so I looked into that, and apparently it made in rat models when they were testing this on rats initially. The rats became pregnant less often, but then they hypothesized that the rat has a different like progestin receptor than humans, and that it may not affect humans, but they don't know, and they have no evidence to say one way or the other. So they just have to put out this statement that it may make it more difficult to become pregnant. They also noted that being pregnancy and breastfeeding were kind of up to the provider. It wasn't like a hard no um, to use it with that. The dosing is kind of interesting: 100 milligrams on an empty stomach, and then 50 milligrams every 12 hours after that. So 100 milligrams, 12 hours later, you take 50, 12 after that, 50. And use beyond 14 days was not studied. So it's only really approved for 2 weeks, right? So I guess then my concern with it would be, well, I mean, the problem with opioids are not for people that only use them for under 2 weeks. Like people that use opioids for less than 2 weeks are not really going to become addicted to them. It's the people that have chronic use. And so like this is kind of like it's being marketed as like this replacement for the opioids, like, oh, this could replace opioids. And it's like, yeah, but you're also saying that use beyond 14 days is not studied. And like, can we do that? Can we prescribe this beyond 2 weeks? What if somebody's on opioids? I mean, I guess it's not necessarily going to help us get off, because the opioid at that point is not blocking pain; it's causing brain damage. Essentially, it's altered the brain chemistry and the dopamine, and you become addicted to it rather than it like the pain's gone at that point. Um, but if you got new patients, but at the same time, like giving opioids to people short term is really not a problem. Like that's not something that we're really all that concerned about. You give people a limited supply of low dose, small amount, they take it, they run out. These are not the people that are using fentanyl and heroin. These are not the people that are like going back and getting more and more and more. It's the people that, especially like 20, 30 years ago when they were like um, being told that these weren't addictive. And so they were giving them out like candy, and they were just giving people hundreds of pills and basically saying, oh, you could take this as much as you want forever. Those are the people that got addicted. Nowadays, people are not getting addicted to opioids nearly like they were before. Um, so I guess the exciting thing about this is that, in this small study, and the thing is, they only tested the pain 48 hours later, right? So that's all we know. We know that it worked as well as the opiate 48 hours later. Um, and this is, this is kind of one reason why I wanted to talk about this medication was I just want to talk about new medications in general. I just generally don't like using new medications. Cobenfy came out last year, and it's like this new exciting medication. I thought about doing one of these short takes on Cobenfy, but now it's been almost a year, so I thought, well, maybe I'll just get to it when I get to antipsychotics at this point. But I think in the future, when new meds like Cobenfy come out, I'm going to go ahead and throw my 2 cents in there. And I wanted to talk about this Suzetrigine kind of as a platform to talk about this point in general. Like, um, I don't like the idea of using these new meds because it's like we have very limited data. We don't know really what it does in pregnancy and breastfeeding. They're saying, oh, we don't see any reason why it could be a problem. It's like, but we haven't seen, right? Well, we don't think it'll be addictive, but yeah, you only tested it for 2 weeks. Um, oh, it works as well as opioids. Oh, okay, we have 2 studies showing it worked just as well by the drug company that wants it to get approved. That you can basically design a study to make your drug work no matter what. So like, can we even really trust that? Like, you have the incentive to get this approved, um, and then the like 48 hours later, okay, well, what about a week later? Do we know that data? I mean, you say that you're using it for up to 2 weeks, but yet you don't show me the data for how it compared 2 weeks later compared to opiates. Um, and then what? Like, you're marketing this as like this awesome replacement, and it's like, yeah, but what about the fact that really the problem is not short-term opiate use, it's long-term opiate use. And if this is not like being marketed to be used long term, then does it really solve that problem? What if someone's got chronic pain? Can I use this for chronic pain? It sounds like no. It sounds like it's for acute pain. So, and then the thing is, in 4 or 5 years, maybe people will be using it. We'll find out more about it, and we'll find out, oh wow, this could replace opiates for chronic pain. It's like, but we don't know that now, right? I mean, I'm excited about it. I can't, suppress that. Like, I'm excited about this new. I'm a drug guy. I, I'm a pharmacology, student. I'm interested in the fact that this is a new mechanism of action, and it looks like it's not going to be addictive, and it has very low side effects, and it worked as good as opiates. There's all this like really promising stuff, but anytime if you look at a new drug and the only studies we have are the drug company, it's kind of like I told you with belazidine and vortioxetine. We have like, I mean, those have been out for like 10 years plus now, and the only studies we have on it are the ones done by the drug companies. No one else has put anything else out about them. It's like I still consider them like too new, and not enough data to really recommend their use for anyone. You know, um, yeah, lumateperone. That's another antipsychotic that came out 2019, I think it was. I've given that to one patient when I was on inpatient. I mean, he had taken it before, and we were just putting it back on there, and I was like, I'm excited about lumateperone. It sounds, like it could be better than what came before. I want to give it a try. But it's expensive. That's the other thing. These new meds are expensive. And that's we're going to talk about cost here in a second. But like, just we don't have a lot of information. We don't have enough information to really know how great is this medication. You know, and I'd like to apply that to new psych meds that come out. They come out, they're super freaking expensive, and we have not that much data on them. And like, how much history do we have where we can look at things like, I look at Prozac, where it's like, oh, is 1% rate of sexual dysfunction. And we knew that antidepressants caused that because the TCAs caused it, right? It's like, oh, Prozac doesn't. It's like, why wouldn't it? It affects serotonin. That's what's causing the sexual side effects. And they're like, oh, wait, we found out it's 70%. So like, very little in the beginning. But at the same time, if we don't use this med, we're not going to get the data to find out if it's really great or not. So like, I personally, do I want to spend money on this and give money to the drug companies to find out if it works and see and get that data? No. But do I want that data to come out? Like, do I want us to see if this is a great med that we might want to use? Yeah, I mean, I guess I do, you know? So that's just my thoughts. And so let's talk about price. All right. So it's $18.60 a pill. And I had heard somewhere else $15 a pill. It sounds like a lot to me. I mean, you have to take this thing twice a day. So that's like almost $40 a day. And I guess if you took it for 2 weeks, that'd be like $600. Right? That's a lot of money. And if you took, say we are taking it longer, that's $1,200 a month. This is, you know, like, what is that? Like $15,000 a year? I mean, that's not nothing, right? And let's compare it to Percocet. Okay. Um, let's go ahead and compare it to branded Percocet, right? I tried to do, because the study did it to basically Vicodin. I couldn't find a price for branded Vicodin, so I did Percocet. Percocet's oxycodone acetaminophen versus Vicodin, which is hydrocodone acetaminophen. So Percocet is $35 a pill, so it costs twice as much as this thing does. But then we have generic Percocet now, which is 9 cents a pill to $1.90 a pill, right? So, I mean, we've got, like, if I've got a choice between using Percocet and Suzetrigine Journavx, I'm gonna pick generic Percocet oxycodone acetaminophen because, like, it potentially costs as little as 9 cents a pill, and if I'm only gonna give it to the patient for a couple weeks, I mean, that's like $3 or $4 compared to like $600. I mean, and I'm not really concerned someone's going to get addicted to this opiate that I'm giving them for very short term use. And I mean, honestly, look, it's not even that much better than placebo. So, what, placebo, 31% drop in the abdominoplasty, and then the opioid was 43%. I mean, that's only 12% better. I mean, what if we compared it to like ibuprofen? I'm sure ibuprofen is also better than placebo. What if we compared it to just acetaminophen, Tylenol by itself? I'm sure that's better than placebo. I mean, so placebo is 31%, and then the hydrocodone, acetaminophen, and suzetrigine are 43, 47%. Then like an ibuprofen, acetaminophen is probably like what, 38 or 9%. Better than placebo, but not as good as these. I mean, that's only a few percent difference. So, I mean, and that also costs nothing. So, might I just want to use one of those, or might I want to use just generic Percocet, which is like all a lot cheaper and about the same effectiveness rather than this, which is 600 freaking dollars? I mean, does that really make sense? And the thing is, I think as doctors, I feel like there should be a class in medical school and a class in residency that tells you all about the finances. Because like, here's the thing. I need to check this again, but like the last time I looked, the U.S. healthcare system spends like almost $8,000 per person per year. That's insane. Like, Switzerland is like half that. Switzerland is like almost 4,000, and they have like one of the most elaborate healthcare systems, and everyone has healthcare, and everyone gets like super fast healthcare. Like, all the complaints about like Canadian systems and UK systems, Switzerland is basically like the Cadillac system, like the United States, and everyone has it, and it's still half the price in one of the most expensive countries in the world. And then you look at like Canada and the UK, and it's like, maybe 2,500 or 3,000 per person. You look at something like Japan, where I live, $1,700 a year. You look at like Taiwan, which has also a universal healthcare system, it's like $1,200 per person per year. Um, and I can tell you the Japanese healthcare system is super good. Like, I've used it. It's really, really good. It costs $1,700 in a US system, 18,000, or sorry, 8,000. And I mean, we know our healthcare system is lacking. Part of the problem is this. I mean, people spending $600 on a treatment when they could spend a few dollars for something that's just as good or almost as good. And I think, getting classes on that would like be really useful. There should be like an economics of the healthcare system class, because part of the reason why our healthcare system is so expensive is because we don't really think about, oh, we'll just order all these labs. And it's like, did we really need it? I mean, do you know how much those labs cost? They cost hundreds of dollars a piece. Every time you order those labs, it's hundreds of dollars. Did you really, each for each one, did you really need that? Or did you just think, oh, I'll just get it? And sometimes the patients end up paying for this. Like in the military system I was in, the patients didn't pay for it. Taxpayer pays for it, right? Um, but like in other systems, sometimes the patient ends up getting a bill for this, and they what are they supposed to like check us on everything we do? Oh, doc, I don't really think I need two CBCs. Can we like skip? Can we have a CBC every other day instead of every day? Like save me a couple $100. Like they're not gonna. They don't have the tools to second guess what we're doing. They don't even know what this stuff is. It's our job to do that. So I mean, I think this is insanely expensive, right? I mean, and then let's compare it to one of our psych drugs, Zoloft. So branded Zoloft, $18 a pill, same, but it's generic now, 6 cents to 200. Sorry, it's as low as 6 cents per pill, and as much as $2.87 per pill. So like, look what happens when things go generic. And guess what? This pill goes generic. The patent expires in 2029. That's 4 years. If we just wait like 4 years, it's going to be generic. And then the company that made this, I mean, I feel like the company that made this should make some money. They have 4 years to essentially make as much money as possible, charging $600 for a 2-week treatment versus a few dollars that would probably be just as good, until they're not going to make any money at all. And then the generics will come in and charge $1 a pill. Like the system just doesn't make sense. Like the company that makes it should be rewarded, but like the difference between price should not be this huge. So, my verdict on Suzetrigine is, I think it's interesting. I think I would like to see some studies on chronic opioid use. I'd like to see studies on could it replace opioids. I'd like to see more long-term studies on like how is it controlling pain not after 2 days but after 2 weeks or 2 months, compared to these things. I'd like to see comparisons to maybe acetaminophen alone, right? Like I'd like more data, but like it looks like it's an interesting mechanism of action. It does there's a signal here that it's effective. It's got one downside is this mild moderate induction of 3A4 and sensitivity of 3A4. But other than that, it looks like it doesn't really have any side effects or addiction or anything like that. So it looks pretty great. Other than the fact that we don't have like enough data, and it's really expensive. And I mean, some would say, "Oh, that's not that expensive," and it's like, I mean, $600 per patient per treatment. I mean, this is why our healthcare system costs so much, and why like everyone's going broke and bankrupt because of the healthcare system. Like this is part of the problem. And it's like, I mean, look at I'm going to talk about the GLP-1 medications here pretty soon. And it's like, you look at how much those cost in the States, which is like $1,200 a month. And then like I know personally in Spain, I've talked to people there, it's like $300 a month. So it's the exact same medication, the exact same time, like today, their price is 4 times less than ours. In some countries, it's like 400 or 500 or 600, but nowhere is it expensive as it is here. Or I'm not here, but in the States where most of my listeners are, so it's so complicated. And so I think this medication is just it's a good example of something that looks like could be a potentially really awesome medication, but that, how do we think about price? How do we think about the studies done? How do we think about, the way that all came out? I'd like to see more from this drug. I'm interested in it. And that's really my verdict. Am I going to use it for patients? I'll wait. I'll wait and see. Um, but I wanted to kind of throw this out there. I think it opens up an interesting discussion, interesting topic. And I also thought, this is a really cool med. Like, we know how much the problems that we're having with opiates. And if there's a medication that's out now that could potentially replace opiates and be just as effective, that to me, that's the headlines. That's the massive news. I don't know how many of you have heard of this med, but I just found out about it like a week ago, and I wanted to put together a short clip on it for today's episode. And so had like kind of a half-length episode. We talked about one drug, um, kind of related to psychiatry, but I hope you enjoyed it. If I get more information that's kind of like not in, we're still talking about antidepressants, but like if I get some new information that I think is really cool, I might put more of these out. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.